This is Saturday, July the 20th, 2024, and it's the second weekend of my visit to the Isle of Man. And I was meeting up with a group of riders, including a friend from the Isle of Man, Carrie, and we were off on the Scone Ride, and I'll tell you a bit more about the Scone Ride in a bit. Basically, we meet up in different places. This is where we're waiting at the Cronk to see if anybody else turns up. And we kind of started off with one set of riders, one or two left the ride, one or two joined the ride, so it became quite a sort of a flexi ride really in terms of its rider content, but also in its pattern. I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. Anyway, the Scone Ride kind of meets up, usually in Peel I think initially, and then heads north and uses mostly the northern roads of the island, which are much flatter. There's a much flatter area to the north. It was quite a pleasant little social ride. The ride itself tends to vary a bit. It kind of moulds itself into whatever's needed for the day, I suppose, would be the best way of putting it. So if people want a harder ride, they have a harder ride. If they want an easy ride, they have an easy ride. But today was quite a nice social ride, really. It was very pleasant. And it was what I needed after some hard days training as well. You'll also notice that the roads are completely traffic free really. There's almost nothing on them, and that's another characteristic of the north of the Isle of Man. It's very, very, very quiet indeed, far, far quieter than Essex, but also far quieter than Douglas and Castletown and Port Erin as well. So, real treat for me. Some of the roads are a bit bumpy, but they're very pothole free again, I suppose, because of the lack of traffic. So, they're really nice roads to ride on. Some of them, as you can see from this, are also very narrow, it must be said. Again, lack of traffic, you don't need anything more than these, they're adequate. When you're driving down them, you hardly ever meet a car, but if you do, it can be a bit interesting. Anyway, it's called the Scone Ride because normally the ride stops at Sulby Glen Hotel and everybody has, wait for it, a scone. Normally coffee as well, it must be said. And it's sort of a fixed price and it's sort of a fixed tradition. And it's a rather lovely tradition, everybody knows what they've got coming. But anyway, this particular day, people I suppose fancied a change. We had a smaller group because the weather forecast had been a bit grim. And so we made the decision to go to Derby Airfield, where the Gatehouse Café is located. And I'd never been there before, even though I usually stay only a few miles away from it. So it was a new one on me, and it was also good to visit the airfield because aviation is my other life passion, really. So the cafe obviously respects the aviation traditions and has lots of what were for me very interesting photos. So we were down to 4 riders by the time we got there, and that's the 4 of us. Anyway, we headed off to see the Motor Museum in front there, which I've actually never visited, but it does look very interesting. One of these days I'll get there.
Oh yeah.
And then headed back to the south. And I think this next bit really does typify the Isle of Man. Just watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Robert.
Oh, bless you.
That'll be the first time you've opened up to me, Robert.
Thanks ever so much. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Okay.
I just find it wonderful that everybody has a slow pace of life, everybody has time, there's no aggression, or very little aggression anyway, none that I've ever seen. You do see some of it in the news, and that's why it's just such a lovely place to be, and why I'm going to miss it in a week or so's time. Anyway, that's the Scone Ride.